Do not be afraid of being seen as a loser, because that's exactly how the world sees those who dare to embrace solitude. If you go to the movies on your own, if you go to a concert on your own, if you choose to do meaningful things alone, people whisper, he's a loser. He doesn't have anyone to be with. So most people become afraid that doing things alone will expose their solitude. The world has conditioned us to believe that happiness can only exist in the presence of others, that those without a crew, without a tribe, are somehow exiles. But embracing solitude is a blessing. It means you're no longer searching others for what you are meant to find within yourself. Loneliness has the opposite effect of what most people think. It doesn't make you sadder, it doesn't make you more depressed. It sharpens your standards. When you're content doing things alone, you stop forcing yourself to stay in the presence of people who add nothing to your happiness. You don't attract out of fear anymore. You attract them because they belong. And anyone who enters your life will have to compete with your peace. When you start vibing alone, you begin to understand the beauty of solitude. You realize that attracting fewer people often means attracting the right people. See, solitude has a way of exposing something most of us avoid. Many of our relationships are built on need, not want. A lot of people have many friends not because they truly want them, but because they need them. And I'll even go farther. Many people don't genuinely love their partners, they need them, and there's a difference. When you need something, you feel like you can't live without it, but that doesn't mean you actually want it. Real relationships must come from want, not need. You don't have to need your partner, you have to want them. Ask yourself this honestly. If I were confident in myself, if I didn't need constant validation, if I wasn't afraid of being alone, if I didn't feel abandoned or incomplete, if my self-love was already enough, would I still want these friends? Would I still choose this partner? Most people place themselves in circles out of need, not desire. They aren't comfortable with themselves. They don't enjoy their own presence, so they attach because being alone feels unbearable. When you start working on yourself, when you begin to face your fears, healing your wounds, and building real confidence, you slowly stop feeling drawn to certain people. Nothing about them changed, but you did. You realized you never truly wanted them. This is why learning to vibe alone is almost a moral obligation. Because when you don't learn to be alone, you end up hurting people, staying in relationships where you were never meant to stay in. Solitude will make you realize how peaceful it is to enjoy your own company, how freeing it is to not need validation, how powerful it is to feel whole within yourself without needing others to fill the gap. You're not truly alone. There's a presence within you, your spirit, your awareness, your well-being. And when you finally learn to vibe alone, something shifts. You start valuing people more because you don't choose them out of fear, not out of loneliness, not out of need to feel loved or important. You choose them because you want them. And wanting someone, whether a friend or a partner, will always be healthier and more honest than needing them. Relationships should never come from desperation. They should come from desire, because satisfying wants brings joy. Satisfying needs just bring survival. And love was never meant to be survival. When you start vibing alone, you stop performing your life. Not on purpose, it just happens. Because solitude removes the audience. And once there's no one watching you, you realize how much of what you were doing was never for you. Life feels like a circle. Everyone's inside it, moving, repeating, copying, playing roles, trying to belong, and most people aren't even fake on purpose. They're just scared of stepping outside the circle, scared of not being recognized, scared of being nothing, so they perform. They pick identities that get reactions. They become versions of themselves that work socially, not versions that feel true. When you start vibing alone, you start seeing the circle for what it is. You see people acting, reacting, adjusting, reshaping themselves just to stay included. And for the first time, you realize you don't have to do that. You can opt out. Solitude feels like a matrix because once you see it, you can't unsee it. The masks become obvious and solitude starts stripping things away, layer by layer. The need for approval, the borrowed opinions, the personality you built just to survive socially, all of it starts falling apart. You don't immediately know who you are without it, but slowly, your own voice comes back. You start having thoughts that aren't influenced, opinions that don't need validation, values you would keep even if no one agreed with you. You stop being entertaining, you stop being impressive, you stop being liked, but you become real. That's what vibing alone does. It shows you how much of your personality was a performance and how unnecessary it is once you learn to sit with yourself. Most people never do that. They would rather be accepted than be honest. But if more people stop performing, if more people learned how to vibe alone without numbing themselves, we wouldn't connect through masks anymore. We'd recognize each other not because we fit, but because we are finally real. Solitude doesn't isolate you from life, it removes the act. And once the act is gone, you finally get to choose who you are. When you start vibing alone, you realize that if you truly want a meaningful life, you have to make peace with loneliness. Because loneliness always walks alongside the brave. It's okay to want to explore the world and do cool stuff with your friends, but if you always rely on the presence of others to have meaningful experiences, you slowly rob yourself of the beauty of your own company. Every time you feel an urge to do something, to go farther than the people around you, it's not random. That's a message from God, telling you that now is the time to move. Now is the time to act, to start living life on your own terms, because the opportunity you have today might not exist later in your life. Most people don't realize this, but you and the people you love are all living on different timelines. Each one of you is independently affected by events you cannot control. Your dream might be to climb a mountain, and tomorrow everything could be aligned. But if you're someone who never dares to do things alone, you wait. You invite a friend, a partner, a family member, and if they don't want to go along, you postpone the dream. But life doesn't wait. 2 weeks from now, you could be in a car accident that takes away your ability to ever climb that mountain. Do you ever stop to consider that the people you postpone your plans for can afford to waste time, but maybe, just maybe, you can't? Maybe they have years to delay, years to hesitate, years to say not now, but you don't know if you do. You don't know how many mornings you have left with the same strength, the same health, and yet you keep waiting, waiting for permission, waiting for someone else to be ready for a life that's calling you. When you start vibing alone, you realize that postponing your dreams due to the absence of someone else is one of the most expensive decisions you can make, because they might lose nothing by waiting, but you might lose everything. Pity the man who waits on another man's timing, for he places his dreams inside a timeline that isn't his own, and that timeline might be longer than his life. If you want to have a meaningful existence, if you want to lie on your deathbed with as few regret as possible, you must make peace with loneliness. You must learn to vibe alone.